Sexy Dexy headed to Cincy, mega trades galore in the NFL. Plus, that man still doing things that man always does. LeBron and the Lakers in the playoffs. And Fernando joining us live, 9:30 a.m. Don't want to miss that. Yahoo Sports Daily starts right now. Oh, I'm on one for a Monday morning because we're going to talk to that man. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. For the next 2 hours, we are racked, stacked, and packed, ready to get you caught up on everything you need to know for a massive edition of Yahoo Sports Daily. We'll get to the NFL mega trades and Fernando in just a moment. But Caroline, we start with the big action from last night in the NBA. We finally got an upset in the playoffs. Yes, it's only one game, but Orlando did the unthinkable, going out and kicking the snot out of Detroit. I don't care what that final score tells you. The game was not that close. Orlando was in control throughout. Detroit, the number one seed in the East, gets shellacked by a Magic team that you and I left for dead on Friday morning. Good Lord, what a moment for Orlando.
I mean, Detroit didn't even lead for a single second. That is pure and utter domination. And you say it's just one game. And technically, yes, but also no. Because I'll go back to Friday night, that Magic Hornets game, when I was up here on the show on Friday talking about, I don't even think it's going to be close. Let's just get past this game. The Hornets are going to roll. No. That game wasn't even close. Like the Magic were shot out of a cannon and the Hornets were standing there looking around like, what just happened? So yes, it was just one game against Detroit, but I think it's a 2-game sample size of the Orlando Magic hearing all of the noise of the, they don't care, they don't want to be here, they don't play with fight, all things that I said on Friday and things that I would stand by, because at that time, at that moment, the Orlando Magic looked totally and completely dead upon arrival. But there was something that had to have clicked. Whether it be overnight or whether it be having enough time to sit there, either rest, get 100%, and listen to all of the bulletin board material that was being said about them, because the Orlando Magic obviously took that personally. They shellacked the Charlotte Hornets that had all of the good vibes and all of the momentum going into that game. And then they go into Detroit and they absolutely shellack them. I think that was such an impressive performance from the Orlando Magic. And Fitz, we are finally, in April, seeing the team come to fruition that so many people talked about going into the season and at the beginning of the season as a potential dark horse candidate. And then for several different reasons, whether it's trying to find their identity or Franz Wagner being banged up, Pelican Carroll banged up, whatever it was, this Magic team just didn't come to fruition from what we expected them to be or what we thought they could be all season long until the past couple of games. So impressed by what we've seen from the Magic.
Yeah, look, this is wildly impressive. That being said, I'm not going to press panic yet for Detroit. Everything you just said about the Magic is right. And Orlando, let me just be very clear. I owe you an apology because on Friday I thought you were dead in the water. In fact, Friday night I was running on the sidelines during an indoor football league game, covering it. And all of a sudden I looked down at my phone during one of the TV timeouts and I was like, no, that's got to be wrong. Like I literally looked at the score and thought maybe they flipped the teams. Like that's how surprised I was. Orlando, I owe you an apology. You guys were far better Friday night than I ever could have imagined. And then you turned around and did the unthinkable. And I want to credit that. I also wonder if Detroit kind of looked at Orlando the way we did on this show. I wonder if what we saw from Detroit there was a team that just wasn't ready to kick things in to high gear. You taking on a team that's already fighting for their playoff life, right? There's this moment, I don't want to say rust versus rest, but there is this moment for me where I wonder if the Pistons were just a little bit stale coming in because they looked around and said, okay, this one's easy. We'll be able to handle it. I wonder what version of the Pistons we'll get in the next game. If the Pistons come out and lose game 2, then I'll jump on the panic situation. But for me right now, game 1 can be such an outlier. It can be so weird. I'm not willing to suddenly turn around and anoint Orlando or panic that much on Detroit. But this is part of why I think there has been some hesitation, right? This is part of why I think when we look at why Detroit hasn't been getting the love over the course of the last couple of months, like we have all fallen in love with how good the Celtics looked. And we'll get into that later in the show. I can promise you that. We have fallen in love with Detroit in the East. And I've wondered at times, man, are we not crediting Detroit enough? Nights like last night, or why Detroit doesn't get a lot of credit, because benefit of the doubt is earned, and this roster, this team, this way has not yet earned any of that benefit of the doubt in the playoffs. So this is one big step for a really talented Orlando team. I know this team, you mentioned it. I know this season didn't go the way many expected for Orlando, but they are here and they are talented. I would not argue that they are a better team than Detroit. Certainly, though, many people are arguing this is a bad matchup for Detroit. So, Caroline, I think it's fair to be a little concerned for Detroit. I'm just not ready to go full panic yet.
No, it's not full panic time. It's too early for that. If I still had to pick a winner in this series, I would still probably take Detroit. To your point, you have to earn benefit of the doubt, and I think that the Pistons have earned at least a little bit of a benefit of the doubt. Surely not a Boston Celtics level, but at least in this series and in this matchup. Now, to your point, if they fall 0-2, I will completely rethink the calculus on how I view this matchup. But if you want to ask the question of what's the better team, who's the better roster, maybe is the better question to ask here. I think it is fair, point blank period, to say that Cade Cunningham is the best player on the floor. Cade Cunningham is the best player in this matchup. Cade Cunningham is an MVP caliber player. But I think last night we saw come to fruition maybe a concern that we've had about this Detroit team for a long time. And that is, outside of Cade Cunningham, who do you really trust? Because I look at this Orlando Magic roster, and yes, they did not meet the expectations of this season in the regular season. Yes, there have been some massive question marks about an effort level, or just how far this Magic team can go. But I look at Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner. I look at Desmond Bane. I looked at Wendell Carter, who had a great game last night as well. Jalen Suggs. Any of those guys, while none of those guys are as good as Cade Cunningham, I feel like I have a certain level of trust of any of those guys' ability to be able to step up in a big moment when Orlando needs it. Outside of Cade Cunningham, who do you trust?
Trust is a hard word for me, but I will say, I mean, Jalen Durant averaged what, almost 20 points a game, 10 and a half boards a game. Like, he can play. Tobias Harris is a guy that we've seen play meaningful basketball. You're right. I don't trust anybody the way I
Jalen Durant
trust
hit 3
Cade.
shots last night, though.
Yeah, certainly Jalen Durant. But I mean, he had a bad game last night. But again, looking at his line over the season, he averages 19 and a half points a game, 10 and a half rebounds a game. Like, that's not nothing. I know, we're enamored with bigger stat lines, but that's not nothing. And Tobias Harris is somebody average. He had an okay year. I'm not going to say Tobias Harris had an okay year, but we've seen good from Tobias. We've seen good from Duncan Robinson. Like, I think there are enough talented pieces for Detroit. Also, Detroit's built to be a bit of a Voltron to me, a combination, 80s cartoon reference, a combination of robots together that make one bigger robot. So they have a shining light in Cade Cunningham. The rest of those pieces, though, still got them to 60 wins this year. Like, this is a 60-win Detroit team. So while I hear you that certainly the Magic they're better on paper than they've turned out to be throughout the course of the year, Detroit was fifth in the regular season for a reason. I do think that I don't want to go from 48 hours ago, I was ready to leave the Magic for dead, to suddenly now saying I think the Magic are better than the Pistons. I think the Magic are better than they get credit for being, maybe because they are certainly viewed some kind of way further. I do believe that I stand by what we said on Friday. They did sort of walk onto the court with a little bit of laissez-faire, a little lack of give a damn coming into it. I stand by that, but I still think I'd be more surprised right now if the Magic won this series than I would be to see Detroit win in 5. I still think Detroit's the better team. I still think Detroit's going to win the series. Do you agree that Detroit wins this series?
I do. And I said that. If I had to pick today who wins the series, I'm still picking Detroit. And look, my newfound appreciation for the Orlando Magic takes nothing away from what the Pistons did in the regular season. But what you did in the regular season isn't going to help you now. I totally and wholeheartedly acknowledge how good of a team Detroit was, a juggernaut that Detroit was in the regular season. I was the one saying just yesterday before this game that Boston's not going to walk to the NBA Finals because they still have to get past Detroit. But none of that matters anymore. Now it's what you do in the postseason. And I will say that Detroit has a level of effort and has a level of fight that I think was so fun to watch in the regular season. But everyone has a level of fight in the postseason. Everyone plays with a level of aggression and intensity in the postseason. So Detroit still has that edge. But I just don't, I think the margin for what that edge is has shrunk a little bit. So I hear you. On 48 hours ago, you were singing a much different tune about the Orlando Magic. But we had two very important results over the last 48 hours of the Orlando Magic looking like a completely different basketball team. So while I'm not going to get up here and say that I think the Orlando Magic are going to all of a sudden go on a run, that I think the Orlando Magic are just going to run past Detroit, because I don't believe that. But I do think it's fair, because I am seeing the Orlando Magic in a different light now than I was on Friday morning, because we got two very important sample sizes of this team looking wildly different.
Let's see how game 2 shakes out. And then I might join you on that wagon over there. Speaking of wagons, the top of the West looks like a wagon. Wemby makes his playoff debut yesterday. 35 points, passes Tim Duncan for the most by his Spurs in their postseason debut. The Thunder also absolutely demolished Phoenix. So who impressed you more between those two? Wemby and the Spurs, or Oklahoma City?
Like, Oklahoma City was impressive, but Oklahoma City is always impressive. And so was Victor Wembanyama, but seeing him do it on his playoff debut and in an arena that looked as fabulous and beautiful as San Antonio did last night, I think to me, Wemby was the story of the first couple of games in the NBA postseason. Just watching him feel so comfortable in that environment when it's the first time he's been there before, Wemby just always continues to impress me. And what he said in the post game about Tim Duncan being there on the sidelines, Ramon Shelburne asked him, like, is that add a little bit of pressure to you? And he said, no, it adds comfort to me because I'm in this San Antonio Spurs fraternity. I know that someone's always going to be there for me. What a cool line of thinking, where I would view it as pressure. He views it as comfort. I love Wemby's mindset, and I love watching Victor Wembanyama truly look like a symphony on a basketball court, Fitzy.
Yeah, watching Wemby do what Wemby does is absolutely incredible. That being said, my answer to this is neither of these teams did something uniquely impressive because I expected it from both of them. Like, when you expect this level of greatness, like the answer of which is more impressive, my answer to that was, this is why I told you these two first series for each of these respective teams were not really going to be any good. Like, I would be stunned to see Phoenix or Portland win a game at all. I will remind the world, Portland's barely a 500 basketball team. Obviously, the Thunder, and look, Phoenix had plenty to say about the calls afterwards, didn't like some of it. Oh, well. Oklahoma City is deeper. They're better. They're going to kick the snot out of Phoenix throughout the course of this series. Phoenix is just going to have to lay through this process, be dead man walking. That's what I expected. So I guess I'm not really blown away by either side, simply because both teams have blown me away all year. This is not me downplaying either of them. It's me saying, when you expect this level of greatness and all you see is this level of greatness against two teams that, frankly, I don't think have shown anything to show that they're actually deserving of being considered playoff teams. OKC looked good. They looked locked in. I'm not surprised by that. Wemby was a delight to watch. I'm not surprised by that. The playoffs so far just underway. We have plenty more that we're going to break down from it. We will get back to the NBA. But coming up, a massive weekend in the NFL, because we saw that massive man traded, and now we wake up this morning with more trade news. We'll get you caught up on all of it coming up next.
If somebody stops you on the street and they say, Dion, what's Joe Brady like? What do you tell them?
Just a dope, cool dude from Florida that loves ball, you know, and he'll shoot you straight. He'll tell you what you need to, but he'll also laugh and tell a joke. And as a player, coach relationship, it's beautiful to have somebody that you know can turn it on and turn it off at any time.
What is going to happen inevitably in 6 months when you are tempted, when you have that itch, when the thoughts in the back of your mind say, you still got it. No one leaves on a winning streak.
That's what's going to happen.
Yes,
I know.
It's inevitable.
I've been around this sport long enough to know that that's what's going to happen. Is I would like to retire on a 4-fight win streak, then roll the dice, come back, get a loss, and then guess what happens? Then I'm going to get in this chase of wanting to get that loss back. And we see how that ends up for a lot of fighters.
What put you over the top to like, I want to go to Indiana?
I was really close to going to a couple other schools. However, the point that really cemented me into Indiana is Coach Signetti really focusing on development. His big selling point was, hey, I don't know, like other schools are trying to sell you on if we're going to win a national championship. if we're going to win all these games. I just know one thing I can do is develop quarterbacks.
We have the fake handoff. Nate Davis rumbling, stumbling, bumbling, and then easy walking with a little bit of swaggy style in for a touchdown.
Yeah, the swaggy walk is as fast as his run. So that's what's...
Looked like maybe we were going to get a fake pick. Instead, wow, he is absolutely rolling, and now we have dueling quarterback runs all over the place.
League leaders in pressures when aligned at nose tackle since 2022. You see number one right there, and it's not even close, Dexter Lawrence. Why is that significant? Because Dexter Lawrence was moved over the weekend in a trade that sent shockwaves through everybody as we see a top 10 pick traded. Cincinnati Bengals, for the first time in team history, trade a top 10 draft pick to acquire somebody that is absolutely a superstar in this league from the New York Giants. This is a blockbuster in every possible way. The Giants now have the 5th and 10th overall pick, so they have 2 picks in the top 10 of Thursday's draft. A lot there. So, Caroline, if you're looking at this from the Giants and the Bengals standpoint, whose side do you like better?
I like this for the Giants better because if I was a New York Giants fan, through all of this Dexter Lawrence saga, if Dexter Lawrence wants out, so on and so forth, I would say, no, we just extended you in 2024. Like, no, we're not moving on from Dexter Lawrence, especially when the defensive front is such an asset for the New York Giants. But remember what I always say, Fitzy, everybody has a price. So when somebody comes calling and offers you a top 10 pick, you take it. You say, sorry, Dexter, we're shipping you out of here. I thought the Giants absolutely won this trade because you're getting a top 10 pick for a player who will be 29 years old this season, coming off of a down year this past year. So now you get another crack at getting an elite player in this upcoming draft. And also, I don't think there's necessarily immense pressure for the New York Giants to win right now, right away. John Harbaugh is coming into year 1. Jackson Dart is coming into year 2. The Giants have so much talent and so much new this season that if the Giants miss out on the postseason, I don't think it's going to be the end of the world. Now, of course, you bring in John Harbaugh, your expectations get ratcheted up immensely. The Giants need to be making the postseason and need to be showing signs of improvement 1,000%. But the Giants aren't in a Super Bowl window. So now they get another crack at bringing in an elite player with a top 10 pick. They extend their window a little bit more, and they're off the hook for Dexter Lawrence's salary. So I think this is an absolute slam dunk for the Giants. Now, what the Bengals did was upgrade their defense, and they needed to do that. I just don't think Dexter Lawrence is worth a top 10 pick, and they went ahead and extended him, added a year for $28 million. Trey Hendrickson signed with the Baltimore Ravens this past offseason for $28 million a year. Why did the Bengals not re-sign Trey Hendrickson? Because they didn't want to pay $28 million a year for a 31-year-old defensive player. What did they just sign on for? To pay Dexter Lawrence $28 million when he's 31 years old. So it just kind of feels like the Cincinnati Bengals not only just paid a player, which they didn't want to do for the former NFL sack leader, but they also traded a top 10 pick and paid for the player. So I don't love this value. Even though I love the player, I don't love the value for the Cincinnati Bengals.
I'm all in. I'm all in on every ounce of this for the Cincinnati Bengals. For me, this is a great move for Cincinnati. And it's funny because you mentioned the top 10 pick, and I've seen some people say, oh my God, how could you give up a top 10 pick for Dexter Lawrence? We were okay with the Ravens giving up 2 first-round picks for Max Crosby, who's 28 years old and coming off of injury just a couple of months ago. Cincinnati gets somebody that, when you look at the numbers, and I'll credit Warren Sharp gave some advanced analytics of the Giants defense with Dexter Lawrence off the field versus on the field. And it is staggering. So yeah, of course, they get more money here, $28 million extension. And I would love this move even more if the Bengals had kept Trey Hendrickson. If you put Trey Hendrickson and Dexter Lawrence side by side, I think that would be absolutely incredible. But this one just absolutely blew my mind. The highest double team rate. And then you think about, okay, he was being double teamed in a division where he was taking on some of the better offensive lines in the league. I look at this and say Dexter Lawrence, while he is 28 and while he's going to be 29 later this year, Max Crosby's 28 and will be 29 later this year. And we were comfortable as a general football society with the concept of the Ravens giving up 2 first-round picks for him. So I continue to look at this and say, man, if you got right now, because the Bengals, sure, they can worry about the future, and everybody says, well, you get cost controlled at the pick number. I don't give a you almost said a bad word. I don't give a dang. Oh, my, I know. I caught myself. I don't give a dang about the money of my favorite team's owner, and I don't give a dang about where we're going to be in 5 years, right? So if I'm the Bengals, I got Joe Burrow, I got T. Higgins, I got Jamar Chase, I got right now. And if I have right now, and I'm turning around and I look at it and say, right now today, for $28 million, I can make my defense that much better at what is becoming a wildly important part of the defensive line. If I can get somebody that is, to this right now, one of, if not the best defensive tackles in the entire NFL, and I can do that for the 10th overall pick, I'm doing that 10 times out of 10 because the 10th overall pick may or may not be good in 5 years. Dexter Lawrence is going to be good right now and going to be good for the next several years while I'm in my Super Bowl window. I love this for Cincinnati.
But does this immensely improve the Cincinnati Bengals enough to overcome how crappy their defense was last year and the year before? I mean, 2 years ago, Trey Hendrickson led the league in sacks, and the Bengals' defense still stunk. So were they take away Trey Hendrickson and add a Boye Mafe and Dexter Lawrence away from being a competitive defense? Because I also view Dexter Lawrence, and look, I think Dexter Lawrence is a heck of a player. Let's also acknowledge he's coming off of a down year. And I hear people saying, well, yeah, he got double teamed in every game last year. He's going to continue to get double teamed in every game because that's what happens to good players. And good players overcome getting double teamed. So I don't even want to hear that. But also Dexter Lawrence, I think, was the beneficiary of having what I just mentioned as one of the strengths of the Giants this past season. That's their defensive front. Where is Brian Burns' 16.5 sacks coming from the Cincinnati Bengals? Where's Abdul Carter on the Cincinnati Bengals defensive front? Where is Kayvon Thibodeau on the Cincinnati Bengals defensive front? I think Dexter Lawrence has to be a beneficiary of that. Who else is taking attention away from opposing offensive lines on the Cincinnati Bengals defensive front? So I think Dexter Lawrence makes a difference. I do. I think that any team in the league is better with a Dexter Lawrence. But my question is it going to make the difference of the value of a top 10 pick? And is it going to make a big enough defense for the Bengals to go from Joe Burrow having an MVP caliber season and not making the playoffs to the Bengals making the playoffs? Because they are in a critical period right now. I don't think we're that far away from Joe Burrow getting so fed up from what's happening in the Cincinnati Bengals organization that he looks around and says, I'm not being here for this. Like, I don't want to be here anymore. I am an elite quarterback in my prime. I'm not sticking around for these crap defenses. I will give the Bengals credit for going out and giving up what it takes to get a good defensive player and to upgrade the defense. But just because you trade a top 10 pick doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get that same kind of value back in return for Dexter Lawrence. And what the Bengals are gambling on is that Dexter Lawrence has a bounce back year this year. I don't know if that's necessarily, I think that may be a little bit too rich for my own blood, considering how bad the Bengals defense was this past season.
I guess the hardest part for me with everything you just said is like, I see the same equation. And I see it the exact opposite. If I'm Joe Burrow, I don't want to wait and see if a 10th overall pick turns out to be worth it. I don't care about that. That 10th overall pick may or may not be any good in the draft. And it could take 3 or 4 years to figure that out. The chances that a 10th overall pick is also going to come in and make an immediate impact. Like, to your point, does this pick make them demonstrably better? Does Dexter Lawrence make them suddenly a much better defensive line? Even if my answer to that is no, who would they have picked at 10 that would have made them suddenly much better? So if I'm the Bengals, I'm showing Joe Burrow we're willing to be aggressive when we're in this window. If I'm the Bengals, I'm showing Joe Burrow we're willing to not make you wait. If I'm the Bengals, I'm showing Joe Burrow, even though we let Trey Hendrickson walk out the door, we had a plan. We don't believe that Trey can do a lot. We believe Dexter can. We'd rather do that. So to your point, do these acquisitions we see on the screen make them suddenly a Super Bowl contender? I don't know. I know I don't trust the Steelers at all. I know it's a massive rebuild for the Ravens right now. Let's see what it looks like with a brand new coach. We have no idea. And I know that the Browns always suck. So suddenly I'm looking around my division and I'm saying, why not us? Why can't we win the division with one Dexter Lawrence? And certainly, if I'm going to ask the question of, can Dexter Lawrence make me a playoff team? Then my follow-up question to that is, who can I pick 10th overall that will have Dexter Lawrence's level of impact for the next 3 years? And I think the answer to that is nobody. So for that reason, even though we're seeing the same thing, we just see it from two very different sides. Because I hear you, and you're totally right. Like cost control and age and all of these things. If I'm Joe Burrow, I don't care about that. I'm Joe Burrow. I'm looking at it saying, I've got to get back to being better. And while Dexter Lawrence alone may not do that, I don't believe anybody selected at the 10th overall pick in this year's draft is going to have a bigger impact this year or next year than Dexter Lawrence is going to have. So that's where I get there. Not the only huge trade news we have this morning, by the way. A.J. Brown, we've all heard the speculation. The speculation feels like it inched forward. Can we agree with that? It inches forward today. As Adam Schefter reports that it now looks like it's almost a done. Like, however we can say this, A.J. Brown is expected to be traded to the Patriots on or after June 1st. A reminder that it has to be after that date because of the salary cap hit to the Eagles for trading him. But Schefter reporting that the talks have gotten to the point that it's basically a given now. Everyone around the league is expecting that these two teams will result in a trade. It just won't happen until June 1st.
Shocking. Oh my, what? A.J. Brown's going to get traded to the Patriots? What in the world? No, I'm kidding. We knew this. The writing has been on the wall for months now. We knew that A.J. Brown to the Patriots was inevitable and that it would likely be, we've talked about it here on the show, it would likely be post June 1st because of the cap money. This isn't anything new to me. Sure, maybe making it public makes it feel a little bit real. The fact that it's coming from Adam Schefter makes it feel a little bit more inevitable. But we all knew that this was going to happen, and we knew that A.J. Brown would likely be traded, and if he was traded, it would likely be to the Patriots, where he would be reunited with his former coach in Tennessee, a team that's needy for an elite number one stretch the field kind of wide receiver. This isn't anything new to me. Frankly, Fitzy, this feels a little bit like the Patriots are trying to pump some new news into the social stratosphere to maybe dilute some other news that has been coming out about the New England Patriots head coach. So to me, this isn't crazy. To me, this is something that we already knew. To me, I think we already knew that it was inevitable. A.J. Brown would be a New England Patriot. The question was just when and what would they have to give up to get him.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think we all have been waiting for this moment. And even Mike Silver was on with us a few weeks ago and said, you know, when we asked about big trades, he's like, we all know A.J. Brown, it makes sense. Like, everybody in league circles has been saying it makes sense. I don't know that we got any fresh, wild, or new reporting on this, just that Adam saying, hey, it feels like everything's basically done, but they don't want to press go on it now. One important note that Adam at least clarified in there, because my first thought was, well, why not at least agree in principle then, and why not have the Eagles and Patriots figure out a way to essentially pick whoever they want now and make it part of the trade. So A.J. Brown goes to the Patriots simply select in the draft someone they could give to the Eagles. But one thing Shefty made apparent in his article is that the Patriots are very comfortable not getting anything this year. They're comfortable getting draft equity next year or the year after because they like those drafts better. So certainly this becomes curious also, as Garofolo points out, that he's not expected to attend any of the offseason programs. That doesn't surprise me at all. They got to keep him out of the building because the last thing they want, and look all the way back to when I was living in Nashville and Steve McNair was about to get traded from the Titans. That's a long time ago. The one thing they did when they decided that the Titans were going to trade him is they blocked his access card to keep him out of the building. Why? Because if, God forbid, a weight slips and he hurts himself in the weight room, it can impact all of that, and it impacts who's responsible for what. So no surprise, A.J. Brown and the Eagles likely to spend plenty of time away from each other until June 1st. So we'll continue to keep you updated on it. Obviously, Shefty has put out a bunch of news and notes. A reminder, the draft will be here on Thursday. Yahoo Sports got you covered. We have live shows on Thursday and Friday, so we'll get you covered through every single pick of the NFL draft, including, I don't know, one guy that looks like he's probably going to be the first name called. I'm going to completely fan child for the next 15 minutes. Fernando Mendoza joining the show next.
Johnson to the end zone, caught. Guess who? C.J. Jefferson.
And in talking to the coaches this week, I mean, they said that's your playmaker. That's the guy that Jerome Johnson has the most confidence in. And there you are on 4th and goal, and you throw it right at the goal line, right at the yellow line at the wall. Terrific throw. Nice catch.
Great execution there for New Mexico. They had to have a play.
What's the appropriate reaction to Jon Scheyer and where he stands right now?
Taking a step back and taking a measured look at everything. And one of the issues that Duke has is they basically have a new team every year. A lot of the Duke players don't have that memory bank. So you have to look at that, like you have to be able to put those players in as many game situations and practice as you can.
Taylon Green's like raw arm talent is kind of insane.
Down the field, he has more accuracy than short throws. Like he struggles throwing short, and it's the most bizarre thing. So with Green, is like, is this just what he is? Some guys just throw how they throw, no matter what you do.
I do think if you are trying to like really take the swing somewhere outside the top 100, it's a 3% chance. But I'm at least at 3 with him as opposed to like 0 with most of the other guys.
Now Sutherland to send it away. Deep man will be Arlen Bruce. Bruce angling near side, going to play it off the wall. Tough one, but he scoops it at the 2. Bruce gets crushed.
He gets drawn right into this, and boy, that is a big collision there.
Myler going to throw for the first time, and down he goes.
Fishers is playing with an edge. Naylor had nowhere to go with the ball. He had to eat it and take that hit.
Good morning, football. I do think Fernando is going to be a great addition to our team from Kirk Cousins. That's the really reasonable, fair, professional approach. I am going to introduce this guest the way the gods intended it. With the first pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, my beloved Raiders will be selecting this man. Fernando Mendoza joins the show right now. Heisman Trophy winner, national champion, future number 1 overall pick. Joining us on behalf of Pfizer. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. I know it's really important to you. We're excited to talk to you about that. Let's talk a little bit of life for a second, though, first, because in a few days, the anticipation from most of us around the world is your name's going to be the first one called. How is all of this just soaking into your brain as you get ready for it?
Well, it's been a blessing, but first of all, Jason and Caroline, thank you so much for having me on. I see the little bit of a sliver of the Raiders helmet back there. That looks awesome. And Caroline, I see the LSU helmet back there as well. My grandfather went to LSU, so go Tigers as well. It's been a whirlwind. It's been a whirlwind of the past year, of the year 2026, whether it's been the national championship, to the draft process, to then anticipating Thursday night. It's a great blessing. I'm really excited to spend it with family at home in Miami and looking forward to the opportunity. I believe that it's a new beginning. It's not an end, and I'm really excited for the new opportunity.
Very exciting new opportunity, no doubt. And I can only imagine how much of a whirlwind the past several months have been, going back to the college football playoff. But for now, what kind of conversations have you been having with either players or front office members of the Raiders organization?
First of all, I love that picture. It's very flattering. You got some hand movements in it too. So that's great. But I've been able to have around three conversations with the Raiders, a formal interview at the Combine, Zoom, and then I was able to go to a top 30 visit. All those, I believe, have went well. Been able to learn and be able to get quizzed by them, poke and prodded. So I'm looking forward if they call my name on Thursday night. Excited for the opportunity. But it's been cool. The draft process is 3 months, and usually a job interview is a couple of days. So you can't really fake it till you make it. So I'm really happy that teams have been able to pull back the layers, do the research on me, see the real me. And yeah.
When teams pull back the layers to see the real you, what do they see in you that maybe the rest of us don't know about?
I think they get an authentic and genuine guy that is able to connect in the locker room. Sometimes social media paints me a different type of way, which is awesome. However, I believe I really take pride in connecting with my teammates at a personal level, not just a performance level. So whatever team picks me, I'm looking forward to doing that. And I think just the competitive toughness that I still need to improve and learn on a lot, but I believe that I'm on the right track, and to be able to have tested at the emotional and mental intelligence level, whether it's been at Berkeley or Indiana through adversities, I'm looking forward to improving that as well. But I believe those have stood out so far.
You mentioned how social media maybe paints you in a different light. What do you think is the biggest misconception of Fernando Mendoza?
I mean, I don't know if it's a general misconception. I believe I'm a very energetic, happy, and God-based individual. I think that social media paints me out to be. I would say, yeah, I honestly can't give you an exact that social media paints me out to be a little different, but I know the flipping moment went pretty viral, and obviously I never like to cuss on camera, but I'm able to say curse words, and that is one thing. But obviously it's on national television, so I want to be respectful.
Speaking of being respectful, I love you. A lot of thought went into your process, I'm sure. You decided to enjoy the draft and experience the draft at home with your family rather than go. What went into that decision for you?
Well, it was a family decision. I wanted to be there with everyone who's part in this football journey to then the start of this new opportunity, whether it's coaches, mentors, family, friends that have helped me get to this point. I believe it's important to make that memory with them. The travel, tell my family, they've done a lot of travel this entire year, whether it's been the Heisman ceremony, the national championship, or Big Ten championship as well. My mom wanted to stay at home. It's easier. We need to head on a flight the next day at 7 a.m. or 6 a.m., depending on what team selects me. So getting ready for that anyways. And although it's great, I believe that the best thing to do is to spend it with the people who've made me, the people who've made me who I am. And I love the other, but, and I wish them the best in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's going to be a great time. And I'm always just trying to be a great league partner. There's going to be a million cameras there, how many cameras they want, the NFL wants for their production to be there. And yeah.
It is going to be a party at your draft party at home in Miami. So I love that you made that decision to stay close with in a place that means a lot to you, with the people that mean the most to you. And of course, enjoy every single second when your name is called, when you pick up the phone, when you hear that your name has been selected. Enjoy all of it. But what you're going to hear, I'm sure you've heard a lot of it already, and what you're going to hear moving forward is Fernando Mendoza is the savior of our franchise. When you hear that, how does that make you feel? What goes through your mind?
Yeah, that's a great thing to be named. However, I believe that I just going to try to control the controllables, just like I did at Indiana. I'm going to try to be the efficient player that I am, try to be the point guard of the offense, get the ball to the playmakers. Whatever team I'm selected to is going to have great receivers, great tight end, and fantastic running back and offensive line. And so I'm going to try to do my controllables, try to drive the ship there, and be as efficient as I can in that offense.
What kind of conversations have you had so far with Tom Brady?
I was able to be on FaceTime with him for a little bit at the formal interview, and I was able to meet and talk with him at the Raiders Top 30 visit. Those were both awesome experiences to be able to talk to him, take little nuggets, and he's mentioned that whatever quarterback they select or whatever quarterback they sign, such as Kirk Cousins, he's going to pour into them and give them advice. So I'm looking forward to that if I get selected to the Raiders.
You bring up Kirk Cousins. There's coincidentally been a lot of comparisons made between the two of you, whether it's your game or your personality, your leadership styles. He was just signed to Las Vegas Raiders. So if you had any conversations with him, and maybe what was your reaction when you saw that Kirk Cousins was signed to the Raiders?
I saw him at the Top 30 visit. He's a great guy that I'm able to look up to, whether it's through his game, because he's a man of God and faith, and whether there's a way that he just handles his experience. I think that would be a great guy to learn from. That's because he had so much success on and off the field throughout his career. He's been a great teammate and been a great leader of men and offenses. And so just looking forward to taking the nuggets that I can from him, and whatever he's willing to share, I will take and emulate in my game.
So a couple of days ago, Brock Bowers was asked a little bit about the new coaching staff. And one thing he stressed is that it's a lot of information. This offense is a lot for somebody that's even been in the league for a minute. Obviously, you can't really dig in until presumably your name is called on Thursday. But what's the biggest challenge for you in the beginning of learning what is perceived to be a complicated pro offense?
I really try to pride myself and strive to be a cerebral quarterback. That's something I've done at Indiana this past year. However, learning the system and mastering the new system and having the understanding, like the back of your hand of that new system, is going to be essential. So I'm really looking forward to diving into whatever system I'm put into, and really looking forward to making the most of my time.
It's undeniable the level of success that we've seen from quarterbacks in their second stop in college football. The transfer portal has been such a fabulous tool for so many quarterbacks like yourself. How do you feel like that transition from Cal to Indiana, learning a new system, new coaching staff, new players around you? How do you feel like that transition has set you up for success into this next transition into the NFL?
The University of California, Berkeley took a shot on me. They were my only scholarship offer. I'm eternally grateful for them. I was able to graduate in 3 years. And so after graduating, my goal of college, I said, wow, what's my next goal? My next goal is the NFL. So my mom told me, hey, gotta step up to the plate and swing as hard as you can. If you strike out, hey, at least in 20 years, you'll be able to sleep well at night, knowing you did everything possible for your NFL dream. However, I believe that I stepped up to the plate and hit a home run with the choice of the Indiana University Hoosiers, and I'm eternally grateful for them as well. You know, I've actually had every single year in college, I've had a new offensive coordinator. So I've actually have a process on how to learn processes. So look forward to taking that to the NFL and making this fifth offense in fifth year.
All right, Fernando, let's get into the real nitty gritty here. If this is important. A few years ago, when the draft was in Vegas, I got the chance at the time. I was with ESPN, and Max Crosby and I sat down. We filmed some features for the draft. We got tattoos together while we filmed features for the draft. That's how we became friends. So my question to you is a simple one: if I'm going to get tattoos with Fernando Mendoza, what are we getting? I got the NFL draft logo. This shows you how different we are. Max got kill or get killed or kill or be killed on his knee. I got a logo. He's much tougher than I am. What would Fernando Mendoza be willing to get tattooed with me after he's drafted to the Raiders?
Ooh, I don't want to make any promises because that's, I don't want to make any false promises. But if there was, let's just say there was an alternative reality where Fernando Mendoza did make a promise, I would, tattoo across, I think maybe on, I don't know, maybe a ribcage or something. But my mom, I'm open to it. I don't know if I have to check by my mom about her approval first, but I mean it is what it is, and we'll see. I don't want to make a promise there, but we'll see.
If it does happen, I will be there, but I'm scared of needles. So I'm just going to be there for support and solidarity.
Support.
I
love
will
that.
not be. That's what I'm here for. Emotional support for your tattoos, emotional support here on this show. Fernando, you are partnering with Pfizer on every Breakthrough Matters campaign to encourage cancer screenings. So why is this cause so important to you?
Yeah, I believe the partnerships that are tangible and have real life application and real life positive application are the most impactful for me. And I've been very vocal about health and how that's impacted my family, especially with my mom. And so to have that and be able to vocalize that, because Pfizer's providing to see if you're eligible for cancer screens on pfizerforall.com/screenings, because 50% of all Americans are late or delayed on their cancer screenings. They would have pushed that messaging forward to believe that God has put me here in this place to try to make a positive impact on society.
So every breakthrough matters. That's the campaign for the powerful reminder that progress matters and doesn't happen overnight. So talk a little bit about, for everybody, for young people that are trying to figure out the screening process, how this works for Pfizer.
You broke up there a little bit, but, like I said, again, you can visit pfizerforall.com/screens to see if you're eligible. I'm not eligible because I'm too young. However, I've seen how screens have helped my family in their life, whether it's been my mom or other family members. Just look forward to pushing that messaging forward. Just to have health as an initiative. It's not, it's general branding. It's not any, certain type of drug that we're pushing. We're just pushing general health and getting screened for cancer so you can take it by the horn and make sure that you're in a prominent shape for your family and friends.
That's absolutely incredible. Fernando, before we get you out of here, on Thursday night when your name's going to be called. I'm going to be at a Raiders bar in New York for Yahoo. All right. We're going to be filming all sorts of content with Raiders fans everywhere. What message would you give Raiders fans for that night that are all going to be celebrating with you? What would you say to those Raiders fans?
Well, blessed for the opportunity. And then the next thing I would say is, I don't know if I can say this on air, but it'll be LFG. Let's go.
Let's go.
Opportunity, and it'd be awesome.
We're thankful for the time that you spent with us. I'm incredibly excited to get to watch and cheer you on. This is wildly exciting for all of us. And thanks for the great work you're doing with Pfizer. It's really awesome that you're using your platform to help make sure people get healthy in the process. Thank you so much for the time. Enjoy this week. Enjoy the draft process, and know that we'll all be screaming for you, Fernando. After you get drafted and everything settles down, you can come down and come back and hang out with us. Tell us about how it's all going for you. We appreciate you, Fernando.
Love it. Look forward to hanging out in the future. It'll be great.
Oh, it's great stuff from Fernando
Thanks,
Mendoza.
Fernando.
I was excited before. I'm even more excited now. I'm on one. LeBron's on one too. We'll take it. We'll tell you about it next.
Caleb Gordon, a very interesting situation. He's got a quarterback competition between Austin Mack, who's a guy he brought from Washington, who's been on Alabama's roster for 2 years, and Keelan Russell. Very interesting spring game, as it looked like Russell was further along than Austin Mack.
Do you go get the message board analysis? That's my favorite, where it's like, on that completion, I'm going to tell you what, the spiral looked a little bit tighter. The scrutiny applied to these skeleton drills. Oh, God bless April.
We're going to give you a name. You tell us whether it's a real college athlete or if our producers just made it up out of thin air. Okay, so collegian or concoction. The first one we'll give you is Fat Brooks. Now, for clarity, fat is P-H-A-T.
That is a concoction.
That's a collegian. He's a guard for Central Michigan.
Fat Brooks.
Fat Brooks, yes.
Cook sends it away. Josiah King takes it deep in his own end zone. King across the 10. King across midfield, beats Cook, and King gonna dance into the end zone. Touchdown.
Playing Russian roulette there. I mean, how many times are you gonna just kick right to him? Look at that. Who wants to run in front of that? That's 5'11", 220 pounds, and all thighs. I mean, no one's gonna try to go low on him.
I mean, in some of these clips, your ability to fight over screens. Is this something that you had to learn over time, or is this something that you've always had?
I think that I naturally always was able to switch. I think that I've always naturally been quick on my feet. I just think more so maybe low tendencies or more so low details, which I'm still working on. But I think that those little things that makes the difference between a good defender and a great defender.
LeBron had himself a night on the floor with my son in a playoff game, probably the craziest thing that's ever happened to me in my career. There was a great post going around social media, a picture of him holding his then infant child after the first playoff win, and now he's on the basketball court with him all these years later. Absolutely huge night for the Lakers, but not without its fair share of shock and awe before the game even tipped Carolina, as I looked at my phone to figure out if Shams had been hacked when we found out that KD was going to miss the game due to a knee injury. So at this point, we've got just a depleted Rockets team taking on what we know is a depleted Lakers team, but Lakers get the win. Can LeBron carry them into this round one win?
I mean, if he can continue to do what he did in game one. And look, I understand that KD being out, and Ime Udoka said he would only be one game. We'll see. I mean, TBD. I believe it was reported that it was just like a knee-to-knee contact in practice. So for the sake of this matchup being entertaining, I hope it's just one game for KD. But KD being out for at least one game definitely does and should change the perception of this series. But if LeBron is able to do it, if we saw game one LeBron throughout the course of this series, he can do it. Then I think we need to give LeBron so much freaking credit. And look, I know we give LeBron credit for everything. He deserves credit for a whole heck of a lot. But if LeBron at 41 years old is able to carry the Lakers through a playoff series with or without KD, and there's no Luka and no Austin Reeves, then at 41 years old, we're witnessing things that we haven't seen before in the NBA. I know none of us really view the Rockets as any sort of world beaters or any sort of serious, legitimate championship contenders. I understand that. But the fact that LeBron could carry, and I think can carry, the Lakers through one series, I think is wildly impressive for a player that has as many miles as he has, a player that's been dealing with as many injuries as he has this season, and a player at his age.
Yeah, that's the part of it. Like, two things can be true here. I don't believe that the Rockets are truly a formidable opponent. And as it stands right now, I expect the Lakers to win this series. That being said, it doesn't make it any less impressive that LeBron is able to go out there and do this when he is essentially by himself. I don't think it's a statement of the greatness of the Lakers in this series. Like, to be clear, again, I think they should win this series. So all they're doing is what I sort of expect them to do here. But that doesn't take anything away from the fact that LeBron is playing this well at this age. I think it's an incredible thing. Do I believe that that can will them any farther against an actual real opponent? Like, I wouldn't be picking the Lakers in this series if they were playing a team other than the Rockets. I just don't believe in Houston, right? So even with KD in, I still think the Lakers will win this series. I just don't believe in Houston. So I want to say that, but also make clear I'm saying that to everybody that I'm not using that as a reason to downplay what LeBron is doing. So does it mean the Lakers are going to turn around and suddenly have to be seen differently? No. Does it mean that, to me, LeBron has done something absolutely superhuman? Because of his age, yes, but because of his opponent, I guess I just sort of expect this. I expect great things from LeBron because I think LeBron's one of the all-time greats. So I feel like I'm downplaying it, Caroline, but really it's not any one thing in this series. It's a combination of all of it. So yes, it's a shorthanded Lakers team. And yes, that's a reason why if the Lakers get beat, we have context around it. And yes, it's impressive that LeBron is able to do this. At the same time, he's doing it against a Rockets team that I don't believe is anywhere close to legit. Like, we are trying as a society to label the Pistons as a fraud after one game. I think fraud might be a better word applied to who the Rockets have been through most of this season. They're just not an actual playoff contending basketball team to me.
We are not trying to label the Pistons as a fraud after one game in the postseason. Let's make that clear.
Some are trying.
Some
yes, that is it.
are. Let's pump the brakes on that, everybody, basketball world. Maybe give it one more game and I'll approach F-word territory, but we are not there yet. But yeah, to your point, fraud is the F-word I'm referencing here. I said this, I think, 3 weeks ago, that I think that Houston was the best matchup for the Lakers going into the postseason. And I stand by that. Regardless of injury, I thought that Houston was the perfect matchup for the Los Angeles Lakers. To your point, with that being said, I'm not taking the Lakers in a series with the Thunder. I'm not taking the Lakers in a series with the Spurs. I'm not taking the Lakers in a series with the Nuggets. That's about it. I think that the Lakers, if they win one series, I'm not going to necessarily consider that a success for the season for the Los Angeles Lakers, because I don't think that is. I think the Lakers have much higher expectations with Luka playing at an MVP caliber level, and you're getting, double-double, triple-double type of performances from LeBron on any given night, when Austin Reeves looks like a very formidable third piece of that big three. When we've seen what the ceiling is for the Lakers, a first-round exit is not good enough. When you trade for Luka Doncic, and then the next season you have a first-round exit, or a second-round exit, rather, that's not good enough for the expectations of this Lakers team. I want to state that for the record. If we want to zoom out, if we want to talk about season expectations, if we want to talk about playing to your ceiling, the Lakers have not done that this season. But if we want to zoom in and magnify this specific series, I think it is wildly impressive for LeBron what he is doing, if he is, when he is able to carry this team to winning a first round in the postseason. That's wildly impressive for LeBron as an individual, considering that Austin Reeves is banged up, considering you're likely not going to have Luka Doncic for this series. So I'm kind of feeling two different ways about this, Fitz. In a vacuum, wildly impressive, and I will give credit where credit is due for LeBron James. But if we want to zoom out on the season expectations for the Lakers, if you're a Laker fan, I don't think that this is necessarily good enough.
I look at all of this and so there are certain phrases in sports that are more general than specific. So when somebody says, is he a top 10 player? I think what they usually mean is does it feel like he's top 10 player-ish? They're not sitting there in their head doing the math of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh yeah, I'll put him at number 9. They're not. It's just a phrase, right?
It's a vibe.
So when I say a playoff team, there's a vibe around that. Now, certainly you made the playoffs. You're a playoff team. All right. So if we're just pushing our glasses up and saying, well, actually, yes, you're right. These are all playoff teams. But if we're actually applying the concept, thank you, of playoffs the way we think of a playoff team, to me in the West, Oklahoma City, San Antonio, and Denver, those are playoff teams. Those are teams that you can see winning a championship, and I cannot wait to watch those 3 teams go head-to-head in however we end up getting them, whatever combos we get of that. I can't wait. Must watch. It's going to be electric, epic basketball. Then there's this big moat. And all of a sudden you have, the Lakers. When the Lakers are healthy, they're a playoff team, sure. The tone change, right? Went from a playoff team to they're a playoff team. To me, the Rockets and the Timberwolves both are a hell of a lot closer to a play-in team than they are to a playoff team. They're a hell of a lot closer to trying to decide if they want to tank than they are to actually winning anything of consequence. So that's why I continue to come back to this and say, is it yes, on paper, it's wildly impressive for somebody at LeBron's age to go in and will his team to a victory. Yes, on paper, that's absolutely incredible. But also, on paper, as they are stacked in this matchup, that's exactly what I expected LeBron to do. LeBron beating the Rockets, and I'm saying LeBron, not the Lakers, because it's basically LeBron. LeBron beating the Rockets is what I would have predicted. It's what I expect. So I'm not that amazed by it. It doesn't mean that it's not wild. Of course, it's wildly impressive, and I'm not a LeBron hater. I as we say all the time, he's one of the GOATs. That's fine. That's all it has to be. He's one of the GOATs, right? So all of these things are true. But if I believe that LeBron is one of the greatest players of all time, and if I believe that LeBron is still playing at an incredibly high level, and if I believe LeBron is still a superstar in the league, and the answer to all of those 3 things is I believe them, then why am I surprised that they're beating the Rockets? Because I think the Rockets don't belong in this conversation. So that's why it's funny, because it feels hot takey to be like, I'm not all that impressed. I'm just not all that impressed because I've been impressed all year long. That's where I'm trying to be. The standard is the standard on how we talk about LeBron.
I think the difference is LeBron doing it single-handedly versus LeBron doing it with Luka and Austin Reeves. If this was 100% healthy Lakers team, you would not hear me getting up here and saying, oh my God, we need to kiss the floor that LeBron walks on because they're beating the Houston Rockets. It does change the perception for me, and I think it should change things. When you don't have MVP caliber Luka Doncic out there on the court and Austin Reeves, who has been a massive foundational piece of this team and of this offense, it does change things. But to your point, the Lakers are a better team than the Houston Rockets, and they should be beating the Houston Rockets. But that does not change the fact that the Lakers are not in a championship window. It does not change the fact that while the Lakers are a playoff team, they are not a championship contender. Nobody views them as a championship contender. And whoever the Lakers play next, whether it's Oklahoma City, whether it's San Antonio, whether it's Denver, whoever it might be, I'm taking those teams. I'm not taking the Lakers. So there's the Lakers, I feel like, are kind of in this mucky middle of a really exciting and fun team that has an incredibly high ceiling, but that ceiling is not a championship level.
Agreed. And it'll be interesting to see how this series plays out, whether KD can get back on the court and how quickly he can get back on the court. We'll get back to the NBA, but it's draft week, and we've got draft talk galore, including talking to one expert next. Zack Rosenblatt going to join us. We'll figure out what's happening at the number 2 pick of the draft and if the Jets have any reason for hope. Coming up next.
If somebody stops you on the street and they say, Dion, what's Joe Brady like? What do you tell them?
Just a dope, cool dude from Florida that loves ball, and he'll shoot you straight. He'll tell you what you need to, but he'll also laugh and tell a joke. And as a player, coach relationship, it's beautiful to have somebody that can turn it on and turn it off at any time.
What is going to happen inevitably in 6 months when you are tempted, when you have that itch, when the thoughts in the back of your mind say, you still got it. No one leaves on a winning streak.
that's what's going to happen.
Yes,
I know.
it's inevitable.
I've been around this sport long enough to know that that's what's going to happen. Is I would like to retire on a 4-fight win streak, then roll the dice, come back, get a loss, and then guess what happens? Then I'm going to get in this chase of wanting to get that loss back, and we see how that ends up for a lot of fighters.
What put you over the top to like, I want to go to Indiana?
I was really close to going to a couple other schools. However, the point that really cemented me into Indiana is Coach Ignetti really focusing on development. His big selling point was, hey, I don't know, like other schools are trying to sell you on if we're going to win a national championship, if we're going to win all these games. I just know one thing I can do is develop quarterbacks.
We have the fake handoff. Nate Davis rumbling, stumbling, bumbling, and then easy walking with a little bit of swaggy style in for a touchdown.
Yeah, the swaggy walk is as fast as his run. So that's what's...
Looked like maybe we were going to get a fake pick. Instead, wow, he is absolutely rolling, and now we have dueling quarterback runs all over the place.
New York NFL teams now control 25% of the top 16 picks in Thursday night's draft. That very specific and necessary math done by Adam Schefter. The Giants picked 5th and 10th. The Jets 2nd and 16th in this draft. The Jets really start this whole thing off at number 2 because we all feel like we know what's happening at 1. So for that, Zack Rosenblatt joins us, senior writer for The Athletic. Zach, what are the Jets going to do at 2 when this whole thing actually starts and gets interesting?
I still think it's Arvell Reese. Like, there's been a lot of I think there's too much time in between, free agency and the draft. So everybody needs to create a debate and who they think. There's been a lot of reporting. People think it's going to be David Bailey, but I don't see it. I think that's everybody speculating. The Jets, to their credit, this new regime does a good job of not leaking out what they're going to do. They really keep things in house. And I don't think they're going around telling all the national insiders who they're drafting. So I think it's Arvell Reese, and I think it's always been Arvell Reese personally.
I do love this time of year. You can tell when everyone starts to get bored and starts to throw things out there like, what about this? And it's like, no, we just need the draft to get here at this point. Why Arvell Reese? Why is he a fit in this defense?
A couple reasons. I think first and foremost, he has the highest ceiling of maybe any prospect in this draft, and the Jets just need blue chip guys. And so you start there. You need who has the best potential to be a star at number 2? I think it's Arvell Reese. They need pass rushers, and his ceiling is, what you hear from inside the league is at the very high end, he's a Micah Parsons type. I don't know that he's going to be Micah Parsons, but that's the level of player he can be. And Aaron Glenn likes players who have versatility, and he played both linebacker and edge rusher in college. And so there's a lot there that I just think he makes the most sense in terms of the ceiling, the talent, and I think a lot of times when you compare him and someone like David Bailey, who everybody says is ready to go right now, the assumption is that Arvell Reese is a long-term project. I think he's going to be a really good player on day one because he's really competitive, athletic, and he has great size and tangibles. So I'm really intrigued by him as a prospect.
Long-term, short-term becomes an interesting conversation because so many of us from the outside looking in are just calling Aaron Glenn dead man walking, right? So is the coach and front office aligned on what their time frame is for expectation of competitiveness?
I mean, that's a good question. I don't think they're going to approach the draft as one of us or both of us are on the hot seat, so we need to get, X player who's going to make us really good this year. I really don't think they're going to operate like that, but we're going to find out. I do think if you take David Bailey over Arvell Reese, that's a sign to me that you're worried about your job security because I just don't think that makes a lot of sense in terms of if you're trying to get the best possible players. But they have a lot of draft capital. So you have the ability to take swings like a Reese at 2, because then you can turn around and with the 16th pick, you can take somebody who's more of a sure thing and is going to help you immediately or whatever you want to say. So I think because of how many draft picks they have the ability to not necessarily have to I need to save my job with this one pick. They have 4 picks in the first 2 rounds. That's a lot of draft capital.
That's a lot of draft capital. And we know the Jets are in the position that they've been in for a long time now because they cannot figure out the quarterback position. What's your sense on their interest level in Ty Simpson? 4 picks in the first 2 rounds, like you mentioned. Could we see Ty Simpson being taken with one of those 4 picks?
I don't see it in the first round. I just don't think he fits in general what the Jets, with Frank Reich as their offensive coordinator and Aaron Glenn as their head coach, what they look for in quarterbacks. He's 6'1", doesn't have great arm strength. The inexperience is a real problem. Like, not guys who have only started as many games as he did, 15 in college, generally don't have a lot of success in the NFL. So if they were to pick them, I think it would be at 33 or 44, their second round picks. I still lean towards them not targeting a guy like him. I think they're more thinking about 2027 when it comes to quarterback, but I can't entirely rule it out because he's the clear-cut number 2 QB in this class. And so if you look at him and say, okay, if we draft him at 33, we don't feel the pressure to play him as a rookie, and we can develop him behind the scenes, and then we'll know going into next year's draft behind the scenes what Ty Simpson is like. So do we like him enough to try and build around him, or do we need to go and get somebody again? And so that's kind of the debate I imagine they're having internally. I would not predict that they pick him, but I can't rule it out in the second round is what I would say.
So what gets the Jets out of the hole that they're in?
That's the $1 million question. I mean, they've been in this hole for 15 years now. So, I mean, ultimately, it's what we were just talking about. It's simply find the quarterback. Until they find the answer at quarterback, they're going to keep missing the playoffs. Like, they have tried everything. They've tried high draft picks. They've tried trading for a big name quarterback like Aaron Rodgers. They've tried signing a free agent like Justin Fields. They've tried everything, and it's failed miserably. And obviously, a lot of that has to do with the supporting cast around that quarterback. And I think they're really trying to make an effort to build the best ecosystem for when they do drop that franchise quarterback in. I do think Geno is going to be better than what they had last year. It's pretty low bar. But I think ultimately it comes down to some stability in the front office and a head coach, and some creativity from the offensive coordinator, which they haven't had. But ultimately it's quarterback. Until they find the quarterback, the Jets are going to be the Jets. And, that's been a lifelong quest for this team. So.
I mean, there's no doubt people get hired and fired in this league for the quarterback position. I also believe that the business of football is so much of blame and credit, right? The guys who get the credit, they get extensions. The guy that get the blame, they get fired. If we're going to play the blame game here with the New York Jets, I always believe it's a blame pie. It's never one person. But of the blame pie, who gets the biggest slice for the Jets being in the position that they're in right now?
Oh, man, if we're just talking like where they are, like in terms of how bad last season was and, their prospect for this season, I think you look at Aaron Glenn just because, he's a head coach they handed a lot of power to. He didn't seem like he was ready for the job. But I also think if you take a step back and like, why are the Jets the Jets? You start at the very top. You start with ownership. They have an owner in Woody Johnson who has, historically interjected at times when he shouldn't, really been a little too over-involved. I do think he took a step back and let Aaron Glenn kind of, go into last season and figure things out on his own. I'm curious to see if he stays behind the scenes and lets Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji do their thing because, historically, if you look at Woody Johnson over the years, he gives the coach and the GM time at the beginning of their tenures to show that they can do what they do. And then when things go terribly, he kind of steps in a little more. And so, but ultimately, when an organization has been as dysfunctional as they have been and as losing oriented as they have been, it always starts at the top. You look at the best organizations, ownership is pretty stable or they stay out of the way. And so, until Woody finds the right coach and finds the right quarterback and is able to take a step back and let his people do their thing, like completely, like for more than 1 year, like I think they're going to be where they are.
Why bring in Geno?
I mean, he was the best of bad options for them is how I see it. I number one, I think they would have liked to get someone like Kyler Murray, but the guy has to want to play for you too. And I don't think that he wanted to come to the Jets. And so you have Geno Smith, who had a bad year with the Raiders last year. There's no doubt about that. The Jets think he can be the Geno of the Seahawks years, or at least something close to that. And ultimately, at the end of the day, what I've said, the goal of this offseason was for the Jets to be competent. Like, they're trying to find competence. I know it's a very low bar, and maybe people will laugh at that who aren't Jets fans, but like, they need competence on offense, at quarterback, on defense. And so they signed a lot of veterans on defense who can raise the floor of that defense. And they signed Geno Smith, who can complete passes to his wide receivers when they are open. And so like, that's the very baseline of what they are looking for. And so I think Geno has the ability to, at the very least, do that.
Okay, and I totally hear that, totally understand that. But if we are looking for the best of the bad, isn't that a little counterintuitive to what the Jets want to do long term? Like, don't you want to be so bad that you're within swinging distance of the best quarterback in next year's draft?
I think like I get what you're saying, and there's definitely truth to that. But at the same time, like the Jets, they're not going to purposely lose because ultimately, like Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji's jobs are on the line. But I think what Geno does is he's just good enough to make your offense look competent, so you can evaluate these guys and see like what does it look like when we have a functional offense. But I don't think he's good enough to lead the Jets back to the playoffs. So like the ceiling with Geno Smith, it might just be 6 or 7 wins. Without Geno Smith, their ceiling is probably like 3, 4, 5 wins. And so, like, it's not like they're going to be a playoff team out of this. They do have 3 first-round picks next year, which is a pretty unique spot to be in. They have the Colts pick and they have the Cowboys pick. So, let's say they do win a few too many games, which if you look at the Jets when they're supposed to lose, they tend to win. So that'll probably happen. But so they have the assets to go ahead and trade up if there's a quarterback they love in next year's draft. So I do think they're in a good spot because of all those draft picks they have.
That's where, like, Zach, I hear that a lot from Jets fans, and I know Jets fans are going to watch this. My pushback to that is always this. Like, this year alone, there are 6 teams now that have multiple first-round picks. And this year, the Jets are a living, eating, breathing example of, like, they won 3 games, and they have no path to a quarterback. So, like, I hear everybody when they say, well, just trade up and get one next year. But you can't guarantee you can outsuck everybody else that needs a quarterback next year. So in a year where I know everybody says next year's loaded, but also just a couple of years ago, we watched the Bears, Washington, and New England refuse every trade that they were offered because they loved their quarterback. So I think that's why we come in and look at it. You're right. There's no way the Jets are just going to mail it in this season. But I have a hard time, even with the concept of we have 3 first-round picks. Well, so what? If Arizona's picking first next year, you can offer them whatever. They're not going to not pick a quarterback. So that's where I have a hard time finding the light at the end of the tunnel, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Jets have been in the wait till next year stage for a very long time. So, like, I think that's absolutely fair. And to your point, like, you also don't know, like a year out, everybody talks about how great a quarterback class is. And then when you get to it, like, I don't think people are talking about this year's as bad as it is a year ago. Like you were talking about Garrett Nussmeier and Drew Aller and Ty Simpson. I mean, actually, I guess you weren't talking about Ty Simpson, but you're talking about all these guys as like top quarterbacks. And now there's only one that's like definitely going in the first round. And so you just don't know. And so it's hard to say, like, I'm going to kick the bucket down the road. And that might be why if they draft Ty Simpson, that's why they do that. But that's just where the Jets are at. Like they just can't like purposely lose. Like that's just not going to happen, especially if Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji want to work here beyond this year. And so they're in a real tough spot as an organization. I mean, that's just the reality of their situation, though.
And look, it's totally fair. Let's say just lose a bunch of games, get your quarterback next year. Well, the Jets have been losing a bunch of games every single year recently. And it's, you can always kick the can down the road to the next draft, but a lot of things change in the course of a football season. But with that being said, what does, in your opinion, success look like for the New York Jets in 2026?
Yeah, like I alluded to earlier, like the goal is competence this year. Like I in terms of like win total, like I've been asked a lot, like what does it take for Aaron Glenn to survive? I don't know what the exact number is. Like they can't win 3 or 4 games again, so I guess maybe that's part of your answer. But like the goal is at the end of the year, let's say if they finish with 6 wins or 5 wins or 7 wins, whatever it is, what matters is how it looks at the end of the year. Like at the end of last year, they lost 5 games in a row. And they had the largest margin of defeat over a 5-game losing streak in NFL history. Like, I think they had it was 5 games in a row of like 20+ point losses, which I don't think has ever happened. They had 0 interceptions last year. They had 4 forced turnovers last year. They had some of the worst quarterback play I've ever seen last year. So like all of those things can't be true again, especially the defense side, because Aaron Glenn decided to take over play calling. And so he's kind of going down with the ship. And so it ultimately comes down to like, not necessarily how many wins they have at the end of the year. It's more like how it looks. Are they getting killed every week? Are they losing to bad teams? Are they being competitive against good teams? Like that's just the reality of where the Jets are at. Like I keep saying, like the bar is low. And so in theory, it shouldn't be hard to clear the bar, but they haven't cleared that bar in a few years. So
they also, before we get out of here, Zach, they also have the first pick in the second round. What's more likely to you? They stick with that first pick in the second round, they trade and move back up into the first, or they trade down?
Yeah, I think I lean towards trade back from 33 because they don't have a 3rd-round pick. And I think that's a really popular spot where you have that gap between day 1 and day 2 where everybody's going to be calling them. Some guys that were supposed to go in the first round are going to drop. If somebody wants Ty Simpson, you have to get ahead of the Cardinals at 34. So I lean towards them trading back, honestly, but it's also just a prime spot to get a good player too. So I could see I lean towards them not trading back into the first round. And if I was ranking those, I would say that would be the last one. But yeah, I think there's a real good chance they trade back from 33, especially because you have that 44th pick and you're still going to be able to get a starting caliber player there.
As always, great information from you, Zach. Check him out on The Athletic at Zack Blatt. That's how you follow him on Twitter, X. Zach, we really appreciate your time and expertise. Going to be a fun one, either way, no matter how you shake it out. So we appreciate you joining us and giving us all the Jets insights.
Yeah, great talking to you guys. Thanks.
It's great stuff from Zach. Check him out on The Athletic where they do incredible work covering all of this. All right, coming up next, the Wolves got their butts kicked by the Nuggets. What's it mean? We'll tell you.
Johnson to the end zone, caught. Guess who? C.J. Jefferson.
And in talking to the coaches this week, I mean, they said that's your playmaker. That's the guy that Jerome Johnson has the most confidence in. And there you are on 4th and goal, and you throw it right at the goal line, right at the yellow line at the wall. Terrific throw. Nice catch.
Great execution there for New Mexico. They had to have a play.
What's the appropriate reaction to John Shire and where he stands right now?
Taking a step back and taking a measured look at everything. And one of the issues that Duke has is they basically have a new team every year. A lot of the Duke players don't have that memory bank. So you have to look at that, like you have to be able to put those players in as many game situations and practice as you can.
Taylor Green's like raw arm talent is kind of insane.
Down the field, he has more accuracy than short throws. Like he struggles throwing short, and it's the most bizarre thing. So with Green, is like, is this just what he is? Some guys just throw how they throw, no matter what you do.
I do think if you are trying to like really take the swing somewhere outside the top 100, it's a 3% chance. But I'm at least at 3 with him as opposed to like 0 with most of the other guys.
Now Sutherland to send it away. Deep man will be Arlen Bruce. Bruce angling near side, going to play it off the wall. Tough one, but he scoops it at the 2. Bruce gets crushed.
He gets drawn right into this, and boy, that is a big collision there.
Myler going to throw for the first time, and down he goes.
Fishers is playing with an edge. Mailer had nowhere to go with the ball. He had to eat it and take that hit.
Bobby Marks says there's nothing like playoff basketball. We had a big weekend as finally we get into these series. One game for a bunch of teams and a bunch of series. So today we'll break it down the way we love to on the show. It's time for a little triple threat where we shoot past the dribble on 3 NBA playoff takes. Shoot means we're taking it. We want it. We got it. It's all in. Pass means we don't want it. Dribble means we're cowards and we're going to wait and see how it plays out. So Caroline, let's start with the first take in this one. Jalen Brunson, CJ McCollum. Apparently got a little bit of drama. The Hawks guard said after the game about Brunson milking a foul. This is the quote. Jalen thought we were at a Broadway show. I kind of like the trash talking being very New York specific. So shoot past the dribble. CJ McCollum keeps this up. Could become the next Trae Young-like villain at MSG. What do you think?
See, I think the New York themed trash talk's a little corny. It's not for me. We can be more creative than Broadway. Dig a little bit deeper. I'm going to pass on this. I think that he could become a legitimate villain at MSG if the Hawks win this series. But I don't think the Hawks are winning this series. I mean, the Knicks looked great defensively in game 1 against the Hawks. And it wasn't even, I don't think, the Knicks' best offensive game. And they still won this game, and they won this game comfortably. I mean, you got an excellent first half from CJ McCollum, and it still wasn't good enough. So CJ McCollum can trash talk all he wants. He can try and get a rise out of Knicks fans all he wants. But if you're not viewed as a legitimate threat, I don't think you can be viewed as a legitimate villain. So, and I don't think the Hawks pose a legitimate threat to the Knicks. So I'm going to pass on this.
Oh, yeah, I'm passing on this quickly because, like, look, who cares when you end up getting your ass kicked? Who cares about the trash talking along the way? Unless you're out there swaggy walking by Spike, unless you're out there finger, like, wagging to all of the celebrities sitting courtside, You can't become Trae Young, and the Hawks aren't going to do that.
Yeah.
So it's just this to me. It's just my belief in the Knicks in this series is part of why I just don't feel like. And frankly, I don't think this is going to be much of a series. The Knicks are going to advance, and then we'll get to the real drama that we actually want in the East. So we agree. We both pass on that one. How about this one? We'll bring in some superstar action. Ant Edwards in Game 1 versus the Nuggets finishes with the following stat line in the 11-point loss: 7 for 19, 2 for 9 from 3, 22 points, 3 turnovers. Shoot, pass, or dribble. If the Wolves get swept, Ant becomes next season's Giannis, the superstar that media tries to trade away from a middling franchise in a smaller market. What say you?
The media is going to do a lot of that. But I pass on that being a legitimate thing that Ant should do. I've been on record for a long time saying that I think Giannis should be getting his way out of Milwaukee, but I don't think we're there yet with Ant in Minnesota. I mean, look, they went to back-to-back Western Conference Finals. I don't think one first-round exit against a legitimate championship contending team warrants trying to get your way out. No, the difference is, one, I think Giannis has more patience than Ant has. I think Giannis has more patience than a lot of superstars in the NBA. And two, Giannis won a championship, Anthony Edwards hasn't. So I do think championships kind of hold you over a little bit longer. But back-to-back Western Conference Finals bids in 2 years where I don't think anyone expected Minnesota to be there. I mean, I don't think that one season of falling short of advancing in the postseason warrants a temper tantrum to get out of there. And also, you just read the stat line. Like, maybe Ant's the problem. Like, if it would be one thing if Ant is carrying this team and he's just getting no help whatsoever. But if he's not carrying the team and they fall short in the first round of the postseason, I don't think Ant can be the one getting up there, throwing a temper tantrum and asking his way out.
Yeah, number one, I think he's still, let's find out how bad the injuries have been, because that has certainly derailed the season for Ant. Number two, he's 24 years old. Let me be clear here. There's a better chance of me getting a 10-day contract with the Timberwolves, which is never going to happen, than there is of Ant going anywhere anytime soon. He's 24 years old. They're not going to do anything. But the question was, will the media start to ride this franchise? And the answer to that is shoot. This is going to, once Giannis gets traded, we got to find somebody else that we can obsess about rather than talking about actual basketball, which means that we'll obsess over Ant. Ant will become the next wasted superstar that, certain talking heads will sit there and just pound the pavement repeatedly that Ant needs to require that he get traded to the Lakers or the Knicks because that's the way things go. So I agree on the actual possibility that it happens. I pass all day long. There's no shot that this is happening. On should it happen, I pass all day long. Ant and Minnesota should just continue to get better. We tried to rip apart the dynamic duo in Boston that eventually won a championship because we have no patience in NBA culture. Tired of it. They should stay together. They should figure it out. They should build a juggernaut around Ant. That's what should happen. But the question is, will the media turn this into Ant needs to be gone? Minnesota's wasting him? The answer to that is hell yes, because that's exactly what always happens. Remember, easier to talk about drama than it is to actually force everybody that talks about the NBA to watch games on a Tuesday night. All right, so now that I've thrown shade at half the world, yesterday the Celtics drubbed the 76ers. 123-91 is a final on that. And let me tell you, didn't even feel that close. We found out before the game, Embiid not likely to play this series. It looks bad for Philly. So shoot, pass, or dribble. It's clear Boston won't be tested at all. But here's the trick. Until the NBA Finals, we walking through a Boston cakewalk. Shoot, pass, or dribble.
So I originally wrote my answer down before we saw Orlando-Detroit last night. And I said, nope, I'll pass on that because, the Celtics still have to get past Cade Cunningham and the Pistons. And while I'm not letting one single game completely change my perception of the East, I'm going to lean toward, no, the Celtics are not getting tested until the NBA Finals. I will shoot on that. That's how it feels today. I will shoot on that. Look, I'm not going to count out the fact that Kat and Jalen Brunson are probably the best dynamic duo that we've seen in the NBA postseason over the last couple of years. I'm not counting out the fact that the Knicks could catch fire, some postseason fire. I'm not counting out the fact that, Cade Cunningham is still ramping up from the punctured lung and Detroit can look as terrifying as Detroit has looked in the regular season. Sure, all of those things are within the realm of possibility. But today, I'll shoot on that. The Celtics aren't getting challenged until they inevitably see the Thunder or the Nuggets in the NBA Finals. I'll say it. I'll put it out there.
I respect so much that you have taken this hard line in the sand, even if it's a very wrong hard line. I love it. Look, the funny thing is, I was with you, and then now I'm I'm suddenly planting the flag for Detroit. I don't know why this is happening. I am becoming a Detroit stan.
You are the coward.
Correct. I am. I just can't. I have such a hard time believing that what we saw for Detroit last night is actually who Detroit's going to be. And if that's who Detroit is in the playoffs, shame on you, Pistons. Like if the version we saw of Detroit last night turns out to be who they are throughout the course of this entire playoff run, they're going to get demolished. And you're right. They will get just absolutely murdered by the Celtics team. And if that's what happens, I never want to hear a single person ever in history tell me about this Detroit team and use phrases like bad boys again, or use phrases like toughness again. Because if you go into the playoffs and you just get cakewalked by everybody, then shame on you for tricking all of us into thinking you were actually a physically dominant basketball team at any point, or at least imposing. So to me, there has to be some level of, we'll see the Celtics take on a Pistons team, I believe, that's going to right the ship. And last night will be a kick in the ass, and all of a sudden Detroit comes out with the thunder of the gods. They win the rest of the series, and then we finally get we get the opportunity later to see it. I think that at that point it becomes more of a test for Boston. Let me be clear. I'll be abundantly clear. There is no one in the East other than the Pistons that I believe can challenge the Celtics at all. I just believe the Pistons still have that in them somewhere. They just got to find it. They got to find their sparkle again.
I think we all just need to find our sparkle again every once in a while. And I am
How do the bad boys feel about me telling them they need to find their sparkle? I'm sorry. Guys, just find your sparkle again. Find your light.
You just need to find yourself again. You just need to find your zen. Maybe they need a namaste for a little bit. How do you think Dennis Rodman would feel about you saying that he just needs to find his sparkle with the bad boy Pistons? And I don't know what it is, because we didn't see the bad boy Pistons against Orlando yesterday. We didn't see that same level of fire. We saw it from Cade Cunningham. And I think it would be much easier for me to get up here and say, okay, well, Cade's still ramping up. Cade's still coming back from that injury. He's still trying to get to 100%. Cade had a vintage Cade night. I don't have his stat line pulled up in front of me. Here we go. 39 points. He had 39 points. It would be so much easier for me to justify still believing wholeheartedly in the Pistons, because it's not like I don't not believe in the Pistons. I still think they're going to win this series, but it'd be so much easier for me to get up here and justify wholeheartedly believing in the Pistons if I said Cade Cunningham still hasn't played to his ceiling. If I could say Cade Cunningham still isn't 100%. But when you have a night where Cade Cunningham drops 39 points and you still don't have a single second of a lead over the Orlando Magic, it's hard for me to say that the Pistons are all of a sudden going to just find this next level to really challenge the Celtics. Can they find a next level? Sure, 100%, because we didn't see a great night from Jalen Suggs, we didn't see a great night from Jalen Durant, we didn't see a great night from Duncan Robinson. We can see better nights from both of those guys and the rest of this supporting cast in Detroit. But can we find another level to the point where they can legitimately test and push the Celtics? I don't think so. And I think, in my opinion, that says more about the Celtics than it does about the Pistons, because I think the Celtics are just playing on a completely different level.
It's only one game. We'll continue to see how these reactions come after we get second, third, and fourth games in these series. Coming up, let's see what the reaction is from New York after a blockbuster trade over the weekend. Charlotte Carroll going to join us next. We'll get thoughts on Dexter Lawrence and what it means for the New York Football Giants.
Caleb Gordon, a very interesting situation. He's got a quarterback competition between Austin Mack, who's a guy he brought from Washington, who's been on Alabama's roster for 2 years, and Keelan Russell. Very interesting spring game, as it looked like Russell was further along than Austin Mack.
Do you go get the message board analysis? That's my favorite, where it's like, on that completion, I'm going to tell you what, the spiral looked a little bit tighter.
That's right.
Scrutiny applied to these skeleton drills. God bless April.
We're going to give you a name. You tell us whether it's a real college athlete or if our producers just made it up out of thin air. Okay, so collegian or concoction. The first one we'll give you is Fat Brooks. Now, for clarity, fat is P-H-A-T.
That is a concoction.
That's a collegian. He's a guard for Central Michigan.
Fat Brooks.
Fat Brooks, yes.
Cook sends it away. Josiah King takes it deep in his own end zone. King across the 10. King across midfield, beats Cook, and King gonna dance into the end zone. Touchdown.
Playing Russian roulette there. I mean, how many times are you going to just kick right to him? Look at that. Who wants to run in front of that? That's 5'11", 220 pounds, and all thighs. I mean, no one's going to try to go low on him.
I mean, in some of these clips, your ability to fight over screens, is this something that you had to learn over time, or is this something that you've always had?
I think that I naturally always was able to switch. I think that I've always naturally been quick on my feet. I just think more so like maybe like low tendencies or more so like low details, which I'm still working on. But I think that like, you know, those little things that like makes the difference between a good defender and a great defender.
The Giants are sending All-Pro Dexter Lawrence to the Bengals in a deal that includes the number 10 pick. That from Charlotte Carroll, who joins us now, beat writer for The Athletic, to break all of this down. Charlotte, be honest, when we scheduled you to come on today, we didn't know there was going to be a massive trade, but that's where we are. It's spectacular. So give me your immediate reaction when you saw the deal was done.
Oh, wow. Can't believe that's actually happening. You know, you knew it was probably heading this way. If it was going to get done, it needed to be done before draft day, just in order to get the most assets for the Giants, or it would kind of linger into training camp like we saw with previous players. I wasn't expecting it on Saturday night, but, you know, that's the fun of the business. Sometimes you're out for dinner and things happen and craziness. But the Giants get the 10th pick in return for Dexter Lawrence, and we'll see if it ends up being exactly as promised or what ends up happening. It's very exciting.
And I think you feel shocked for the same reason that a lot of people felt shocked, that I felt shocked that the Giants got a top 10 pick in return. And for that, I think a lot of people are split on this trade, how we feel about this trade. How do you feel about this trade? Who do you think won the Dexter Lawrence trade?
I think at the crux of this, the Giants win because of, you know, you get the top 10 pick in return for an aging player is kind of the mindset. You know, he's coming off a down year, coming off the elbow injury and the down season. I don't know if he'll end up having a down, like if this is, you know, the start of his career going downward, but that's not my decision to make. You know, that's something where the team that's trading him has to make that decision and make that call. And if you're getting a young player, when you think about where this team is at with a new head coach, with John Harbaugh coming in and what that looks like, you know, this kind of affirms that this is still a rebuilding team. So they get the opportunity to not only get the 10 pick, but this gives them so many more opportunities to just do more deals on draft day and kind of move around, which I'm sure we could talk about a little bit more. But it's just a very interesting way to look at this. I do think the Bengals get a really good player still. I don't think he's on a downslide, as so many have talked about. He's still a very highly double-teamed player. So there's just many different elements. And then you also talk about the draft itself this year of potentially being a weaker class than in years past.
So what did they do? They got 5 and 10. What's the plan now for the Giants?
I wish I knew I could be a millionaire. That would be great. But it's so fascinating. They have so many more opportunities to trade. If teams are even willing to want to go forward to number 5, we're going to see if that pans out. The 10th pick is up for sale too at this point. Do they stick and make, you know, who's available? Will Sonny Styles will be there? Will Caleb Downs be there? Will there be a premier edge rusher, you know, if the Titans and the Cardinals are going after, you know, Styles or Jeremiah Love? What are teams going to want behind them? So I think it's very fascinating. And I really don't know. I know the needs that they have on this roster. I don't know what that means for the draft.
This is the second time in 5 years that the Giants have had 2 top 10 picks, going back to 2022 when they took Kayvon Thibodeau and Evan Neal. This team is still kind of in a rebuild phase. This team is still looking ahead to the next 10 years rather than the next 2. But with that considered, how much pressure is on Joe Shane, John Harbaugh, and the Giants organization to hit on these 2 picks?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of pressure. You nailed it that this happened just 5 seasons ago, 5 years ago, or 4 years ago. But it's the context of this too is that it's a new coach. Obviously, the GM is still the same, but as we've kind of seen in different things, Harbaugh really has a lot of control here. So we're going to get a sense of just how much control that is for the draft a little bit more after. But we know he has a say on a lot of stuff with this roster. So I think that's important to consider when even though it's still the same GM in place, there's a new head coach and someone who is decades of experience, and someone who's very well thought of in this building now as he comes into his first season.
What did we learn about Harbaugh through this transaction? Like, what statement does this make?
He wanted more picks. I think that's big. He was willing to kind of look to the future rather than having a player who might be, discontent, might get ugly, come into camp and that standoff, if they couldn't come to a deal, rather than dealing with that, kind of look to the future and see what that kind of transpires and what they bring in as a result.
You mentioned how John Harbaugh now has more power. I think that was clear when they made the hire that John Harbaugh was going to be, taking the keys over for the most part. But how secure do you think Joe Shane's job is?
I don't know if anyone's job is secure at any point in our industries and anywhere. We'll kind of see, as John Harbaugh remarked in his, I think it was pre-draft press conference remark, everyone's tradable. We'll see what actually happens post-draft, but obviously he's still the GM.
So as we look forward on this team, trying to figure out what the identity is and what they look like under this new era, what is the sort of level of concern that you've been able to figure out from this coaching staff about Jackson Dart protecting himself? Simply, as we look at it, we all remember from last year, this was a big issue, and it didn't seem like the prior coaching staff had a big issue with Jackson Dart and worries about concussions. Does Harbaugh and this new regime share that same sentiment?
I think it's something that they've talked to him about and something that, that they've come to an agreement. And even towards the end of last season, you saw Jackson Dart taking the steps to kind of protect himself a little bit better. I think it finally started to sink in. And I do think it's something that this coaching staff and even the end of last season, they've had discussions, and it's something he realizes going into his second season.
Jackson Dart's health will be paramount moving forward, and this team was banged up this past season. Cam Scadaboo was one that we saw go down with a season-ending injury. So how is his recovery going? What's the latest that you've heard on him, and what role do you think he'll be able to play in 2026?
Yeah, the same battering ram. Hopefully, I think if he could, he'd be on the field today. He is such a fantastic player to watch. So light, and it's just interesting. But I think he's doing well in his recovery. They're in the building, both him and Malik Neighbors. I do think Cam Scadaboo has the potential to be on the field sooner than Malik Neighbors. That's kind of just been the case, even though that injury was so scary when we saw it happen against the Eagles. But Malik Neighbors' rehab might just take a little bit longer, which is so many questions, and that comes into play with the draft too, of just bringing in another offensive playmaker.
Yeah. Do you think that they look at offensive playmaker in the draft then?
I do. I think that is an important piece to this roster, that they still need to try to give Jackson Dart some weapons and just try to give him some other pieces. I don't know at what point of the draft having 2 first-round picks does make that a little bit more exciting if the players they like are available. But we'll kind of see.
Going back to how we initially started our conversation, Dexter Lawrence obviously traded to the Cincinnati Bengals. How much do you think does that change the Giants' draft approach?
I don't know if it changes so much, because looking at this, the Giants are already thin at the defensive tackle spot, and the defensive line room was already thin before even this happened. So I think they needed to bring in someone regardless, and it just makes that room, you feel less good about it right now because you lose Dexter Lawrence, and who's such a dominant player. But it's not a position where it was like, okay, you feel great about the room to begin with. So you want to bring in someone. And I think looking at that second round pick that they have, number 37, if they don't trade out of that, just on the table, you never know. That could be a spot either for DT or a guard position, because that's still a need here as well.
What's the sense on Abdul Carter? His first year was not without, his rookie year, I should say, was not without some controversy around Abdul Carter and some incidents off the field, suspension for missing walkthroughs, things like that. What sort of relationship is the coaching staff currently able to get with Abdul?
Yeah, he's in the building. I think it's, again, similar to the Jackson Dart with the concussion stuff and just the head. It's takes time, and players kind of realize it towards the end of the year. And Abdul Carter was trending upward toward the end of last season. So hopefully you see that kind of continue into next year and in the offseason.
What has John, I know it's so early, but before training camp, there's only so much that we really have of a sample size, seeing the coaches interacting with the players or getting a sense for what the culture looks like. Understanding that it's early, what has John Harbaugh brought to the New York Giants, whether it's culture-wise or relationship with the players or style, the way that the Giants conduct business? What have been some early changes that you have noticed with the organization?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to fully get a sense on that. I'll be honest too. I was checked out for free agency. I was actually covering the Paralympics in Italy. So I feel I'm still learning that. And we'll get a better sense as we kind of get into the OTAs and into training camp. So personally for me, I haven't seen as much. It's a different era. There's no doubt about that. He's got a lot of control. But we'll see what that actually looks like and how that manifests with players once we're kind of back in the building a little bit more.
Well, just when you thought you were going to get a little off season, this week only got more interesting for you, Charlotte. We really appreciate your time and your expertise. Follower, reader on The Athletic, of course. Charlotte, thank you so much for hanging out with us and giving us the thoughts on New York.
Thanks so much for having me, and check out The Athletic and me and my beat partner, Dan Duggan. Make sure to read.
Always great stuff. And massive fan of The Athletic here. They do great work. All right, coming up next, we're going to figure out what to make of the not so great work coming out of New York from the Mets. We'll figure it out next.
If somebody stops you on the street and they say, Dion, what's Joe Brady like? What do you tell them?
Just a dope, cool dude from Florida that loves ball, and he'll shoot you straight. He'll tell you what you need to, but he'll also laugh and tell a joke. And as a player, coach relationship, it's beautiful to have somebody that can turn it on and turn it off at any time.
What is going to happen inevitably in 6 months when you are tempted, when you have that itch, when the thoughts in the back of your mind say, you still got it. No one leaves on a winning streak.
That's what's going to happen.
Yes,
I know.
It's inevitable.
I've been around this sport long enough to know that that's what's going to happen. Is I would like to retire on a 4-fight win streak, then roll the dice, come back, get a loss, and then guess what happens? Then I'm going to get in this chase of wanting to get that loss back. And we see how that ends up for a lot of fighters.
What put you over the top to I want to go to Indiana?
I was really close to going to a couple other schools. However, the point that really cemented me into Indiana is Coach Ignetti really focusing on development. His big selling point was, hey, I don't know, other schools are trying to sell you on if we're going to win a national championship, if we're going to win all these games. I just know one thing I can do is develop quarterbacks.
We have the fake handoff. Nate Davis rumbling, stumbling, bumbling, and then easy walking with a little bit of swaggy style in for a touchdown.
Yeah, the swaggy walk is as fast as his run. So that's what's...
Looked like maybe we were going to get a fake pick. Instead, wow, he is absolutely rolling, and now we have dueling quarterback runs all over the place.
Please be advised, first pitch is scheduled for 4:20 p.m. Thank you, Yankees, as it is 4:20 here. We're not allowed to overreact to anything in baseball that happens before 4:20, but we can have a little bit of fun with what today is and decide to give you a little bit of theme here. We're going to do a blazing theme. We're going to blaze on, or we're going to call something smoke and mirrors. We're going full 420 here as we look at some of the biggest topics around Major League Baseball. So let's start with, the Mets. The Mets have lost 11 straight. Sunday's loss especially painful. All right, is this trend going to blaze on, or is this slow start just smoke and mirrors?
Blaze it. Blaze on, New York Mets, and not in a fun way. The Mets ended last season sucking with horrific vibes. The Mets spent big portions and big chunks of last season. Not all of last season, but big chunks of last season. Losing games, looking rough, vibes were bad. So what do? You invest even more money this past offseason, and you start this season sucking with bad vibes, like unprecedented levels of suck, now losing 11 games in a row. So why would I have any reason to believe that this trend is going to end anytime soon? If it goes back to last season and it's continued this season, and especially to the way that the Mets have just been crashing and burning late in games, like sure, the Mets can play for 5 innings, ask them to play for 9, all of a sudden they forget how to play the game of baseball. So I'm going to say yes, blaze on, because this has been a trend that has lasted longer than just 11 games. And 11 games is a pretty big sample size. This goes back all the way to last season, so I have no reason to believe why it's going to end anytime soon.
In fact, if you go back to the 4th of July of last year to now, the Mets have the 3rd worst record in all of Major League Baseball, if you take that combined with what we have so far. And they've lost 11 straight. You see it there. They're 7-15. It has been absolutely brutal. And here's just another fun nugget for you. No team has ever won a World Series in the history of Major League Baseball with a losing streak, I should say, of more than 9 games. So if your goal was World Series by the historic context, Mets fans, you're completely out of it. But I'm here to be a beacon of light and a blazing hope. Look, if we can't believe now, when we can believe? Like, this is still, there's still enough talent in this roster to find that sparkle. There's still enough talent on this roster to turn it around. There's still enough talent on this roster to win 11 straight. Is it working right now? No, they need to get off the schneid. Momentum is a very, very real thing. And right now, the Mets have literally none of it. And I get that. So it's easy to go into full Eeyore, woe is me. You barely walk into the ballpark. And I feel like that's a bit of what's happening for the Mets. There are some times that you get in such a rut that you just expect you're going to find a way to lose. That's how I would define the way the Mets play baseball right now. They just expect that they're going to find a way to lose. But all it takes is one little spark. All it takes is one little moment. If we're going to spark up over anything, we can spark up over the hope that the talent in New York will be enough that they'll be able to win some games. At some point this season, there will be a move that becomes a spark plug. I don't know if that's a firing or a trade or some massive block. I don't know what it is. But they'll try and do something to energize the locker room. And when they do, will that be enough for a second half resurgence? This is my bold early prediction that will come back to haunt me. I bet that by September, we're talking about how the Mets have had to dig themselves out of a hole all year, but they found a way to be back in the competitive race to somehow make it towards the playoffs. I'm poly positive on 420. Can't be positive on 420. When can you be? So let's keep it going.
It's also the second time this show that you have mentioned a team finding its sparkle again. And I like it. I'm here for it. I'm here for finding your sparkle again.
Gonna make that a thing. You know, I think I wanted it to be spark, but now it's sparkle. So it's just gonna happen.
It's sparkle.
Speaking of sparkling, nobody sparkles brighter right now than Mike Trout. 10 days left this month. He's already clubbed 7 homers, 11 extra base hits, 16 RBIs. After a down 2025, is Trout going to blaze on, or is this smoke and mirrors for the oft-injured superstar?
I'm going to say blaze on. And yes, sure, that might just be a little bit of hope. Because I just hope that Mike Trout continues this. Because Mike Trout is one of the greatest talents in Major League Baseball. But we don't talk about him in that light because he plays for a crap team. But if Mike Trout keeps doing this and the Angels at least find ways to win baseball games, then we can talk about Mike Trout. And I want to live in a world of baseball where we can talk about Mike Trout. Sure, the knee injuries are a concern. He's dealt with back injuries. He's dealt with the knee contusions. He's had several knee surgeries. I have no reason to believe that that won't rear its ugly head at least at some point this season, because it has come up several times over the last several seasons. That's just kind of plagued pretty much a majority of his career. But I'm going to say blaze on, because Mike Trout is special. And I'm never going to say that Mike Trout can't do something. So I say blaze on, Senior Mike. Blaze on.
Yeah, I love your positivity, but we can't agree on everything. So I'm going to go smoke and mirrors on this one. 2017, torn ligament in his thumb. Wrist inflammation, 18. Foot surgery at 19. Calf right strain caused him to lose 139 days in 2021. Rare back condition in 2022, 35 days missed. Broke a hand bone in his left hand, missed 89 days in 2023, and then missed significant time in 24, 25 with meniscus issues in his left knee. The injury bug bites. Like some people, when they go out, you go camping. We all go camping. I never get bit by mosquitoes. Mosquitoes don't like me. I could go out and hang out the whole time. Mosquitoes never going to touch me. Somebody else gets bit by 1,000,000 mosquitoes in that same amount of time. Mosquitoes are the injury bug for Mike Trout. He just gets bit by it too often. So if he stays healthy, this is the version of Mike Trout we're going to get. The problem is it's not one thing. It's a knee, it's a hand, it's a back, it's a calf, it's a hand, it's a foot. Like that's everything, right? So the fact, can he avoid the injury mosquito for the rest of this Major League Baseball season? Well, typically he doesn't. In fact, the fun fact you didn't know you needed, between 21 and 24, Mike Trout was limited to 41% of possible games during that time. 41%. The concept of somebody staying healthy for a season when they've been limited to 41% of possible games over a 3-year period, I'm not buying it. So unfortunately, I love what we're seeing from Mike Trout, but this is where my positivity ends. And I go back to it's going to be smoke and mirrors, because at some point, the injury gods are always undefeated. How about this one? Let's see. We'll go to the biggest name in all of baseball, Shohei, on Sunday. Reached base for the 51st straight game. That's the 4th longest streak in Major League Baseball in the last 20 years. Ted Williams, 84-game on-base streak is the record. Will Shohei blaze his way to more than Teddy Ted, or is the notion of catching Ted simply smoke and mirrors? Can he do it?
Blaze on, King. I'm feeling awfully blazy today. And it does kind of feel weird. We're talking about Shohei Ohtani being 4th all-time doing something. It's like 4th. That sounds weird. Like, what are we being lazy over here, Shohei? But that's just how accustomed we've all become to Shohei Ohtani rewriting the history books and changing the record books in Major League Baseball. Because if there's a record to be broken, if there is somebody to do something that has not been done in hundreds and hundreds of years, Shohei Ohtani is the one to do it. I said I'm not going to be the one that doubts Mike Trout to do something, because I just view Mike Trout in that high of a regard of a baseball talent. If I'm going to say I'm not going to say Mike Trout can't do something, I'm definitely not going to say Shohei Ohtani can't do something. So yes, 1000% he is absolutely capable of breaking that record. Now, 51 games versus 84 games, that's a pretty massive margin. That's a very, very wide gap, and Shohei Ohtani has a long time and a lot of games to make up that gap. But Shohei, if anyone can do it, Shohei can.
Oh, this has to happen. I need this to happen. I need this to be blazed on. We need this, because frankly, I need every single possibility for anybody in the history of baseball to try and be that guy in the bar that tells me Shohei's not the greatest of all time. I need all of the shut up juice that I can possibly get for that guy, right? So the more that Shohei does, the less anybody can ever try and take anything away from Shohei. And that's the inevitability. Like it or not, at some point, somebody's screaming for a mountaintop. Oh, he's not as good as insert name here. Look, Shohei is the greatest baseball player I've ever seen. He's going to end up being the greatest baseball player of all time. I think actually, if he just stopped now and never played again, he'd already have an argument for that. That's how impressive it is that he does what he does every single night. So to me, shatter every record. Shatter every record to the point that every single person is exhausted with your greatness, because when they're exhausted with your greatness, but they have no clapback, all they can do is step back and appreciate it. I want full appreciation for Shohei. So I feel like this is the only way that we can possibly get it. Speaking of full appreciation, Caroline Fenton, full appreciation for guys that get the bag on this show. We got some breaking news this morning. Somebody else getting paid. Trent Williams, extended by the 49ers. Massive deal. 49ers and 12-time Pro Bowl tackle Trent Williams reached agreement today on a 2-year, $50 million extension that now contractually ties him to San Francisco through 2027. The numbers are so clear about how much better they are when he is on the field versus when he is not on the field. The numbers are so clear on what a difference he makes. My guy's 37 years old and just got locked up through 2027 at historic money. He's the only non-quarterback ever to make $400 million in his career for a reason. Caroline, this is a great moment for San Francisco. Great moment for Trent Williams, who now can sit on bags of cash like Scrooge McDuck for the rest of his life.
And we've been talking about this saga between Trent Williams and the San Francisco 49ers going back the last several months. Like, there was a lot of question. There was a lot of maybe concern that Trent Williams and the 49ers wouldn't be able to get something done. And normally I would say fully guaranteeing $37 million to a 37-year-old left tackle, not necessarily the wisest decision. But Trent Williams was on the field for 16 games last year. In a season where the 49ers were riddled with injury, Trent Williams was not just available, he was incredibly effective. That offensive line is, and specifically Trent Williams, is an asset and is a strength of this 49ers team. So to be able to have consistency while the 49ers are still in a window, what they're not doing is signing him to, some crazy long-term deal. That wouldn't be smart, because that's not where he is in his career, and that's not where the 49ers are right now as an organization. They are squarely in win now mode. And it looks like a 2-year extension. It's really a 1-year extension. And they're just, front loading a lot of this money for Trent Williams. It is very clear. It is obvious. It has been clear, but this makes it even more obvious. The 49ers are clearly trying to capitalize on a Super Bowl window. Trent Williams and consistency at the left tackle position allows you to do that. So good on the 49ers for getting this deal done.
As Adam Schefter points out, this offseason, they've extended Trent Williams. They've signed Mike Evans. They brought in Christian Kirk. They signed Trey Greenlaw. They traded for Osa Odigizua. They re-signed Eddie Pinero, their kicker. And then they bring in Raheem Morris as their new defensive coordinator. Like, the 49ers have been active this year. I think that's a fair statement. And look, they're not a team that's like turning around trying to build on youth. They're not a team that's waiting to see what's coming down the pipeline. They're a team that's built for now. In fact, it's been made clear also around the league that teams have called around Mac Jones, and the 49ers have no interest on even listening to those calls. And there was one report that there's no market for him, and a coach clapped back to that saying, ask what the market would be if he was released, because the 49ers simply aren't taking calls. Why? Because San Francisco believes that they have a very real shot at a Super Bowl right now. Now, they're in a division with the Rams. They're in a division with the defending Super Bowl champion Seahawks. Life is not going to be easy for the NFC West or for the San Francisco 49ers. But, Caroline, I struggle to look at the 49ers and not put them in that highest of high elite type categories in the NFC, knowing that certainly they have to stay healthy. But when you look at just what they have at skill position, what they have for depth, the way they've spent money this offseason, it's a reminder, I think we're sleeping on a team that has a real shot at a Super Bowl if they stay healthy.
And they even had a shot at a Super Bowl last year, it felt like, when they weren't 100% healthy. When Mac Jones was able to keep this ship above water, even when they had an injury report as long as a Harry Potter novel, it felt like, at so many times. Now, I think George Kittle and his availability and his health and his recovery is going to be a really big part of this, because George Kittle is such a massive part of this offense. No, but that's a TBD. That's out of the 49ers' control. The best thing that they can do is find consistency and add on to this roster. You bring in Mike Evans and you re-sign Trent Williams, not because you're worried about 2032. It's because you're worried about 2026.
100%. And look, if you're the 49ers, this is a big time. This is a big offseason. Your window is still right now, and you're trying to find a way to take advantage of it, especially in a week where you have the 27th pick. We'll get you caught up on everything you need to know for the draft all week. Come back tomorrow, 9 a.m. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. Thanks for watching Yahoo Sports Daily.